So this is continuing in part 3 of today's editions, but the continuing updated commentary on the behavior of the United Nations envoy on extreme poverty, etc., which will come to in some detail, discussing in some detail, and the lies perpetrated by Roxana Fias, the so-called mayor, at the expense of the London Borough of Newham. Now, this is Mayor Bullman's report, the later part of the report, which says, in one highly charged account, a West African mother with a baby strapped to her back explained through tears how she had to wait for 20 hours outside social services. Now, that's Newham Council Social Services. After fleeing an abusive relationship during which she became so hungry she had to drink her child's milk. Other stories included a mentally unwell man who was fined for making a mistake on his universal credit application, families with young children forced to live in flea-infested houses, and heavily pregnant women having to sleep rough in a park. The United Nations Special Rapporteur. Now, this is a highly exaggerated claim about this fucking racist liar. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights visited one of the poorest boroughs in the capital, that is London, as part of his 2-week tour of Britain to investigate the impact of the rollout of universal credit, child poverty, and Brexit on people living there. Now, this Mayor Bullman cunt piece is a complete lie. He did not investigate the rollout of universal credit and child poverty and Brexit in 2 fucking weeks. The man was completely false. He was entirely dependent on bogus Guardian type morons expressing plastic concern and shedding plastic tears about extreme poverty. That mother wasn't shedding plastic tears. And the point I have to make about this council is this, that Newham Council has been continuously controlled by the Labour Party since it was founded by merging the previous East Term and West Term kind of boroughs. In 1965. So, Mayor Bullman's lying introduction that government cuts are to do with this poverty is a complete lie and a denial of the truth. Now, when I contacted the Independent through my organization concerned and sent a series of queries to this idiot, Mayor Bullman, the racist liar completely went silent. And she has not published anything in the last 4 years since that November 2018 piece about Newham, what is happening to poverty creation by Newham. My phrase is poverty creation by the lying, crooked councils across London. Now, I made the point on the 14th of March 2018. Notice the date. That was literally weeks before the election, which saw Ruxana Fiaz slotted in as the mayor. Now, I appeared live on a satellite television program against then mayor for 16 years, Robin Wales. Now, the notoriety that Robin Wales has and had was that he never, ever faced any journalist, and he never answered questions. Of course, he did face journalists. For example, he did get facilitated while Robin Wales was still in place because the mental surrogate Sadiq Khan accompanied Robin Wales in Robin Wales's publicity stunt tours of selected places in Newham, where the liar, Robin Wales was showing the liar, Sadiq Khan, how Newham Council was taking serious action on housing. Completely vague and completely stupid. That is when the liar, Robin Wales, posed before cameras. When I say that he had a notoriety for not facing journalists, I mean he never faced journalists like he was unwittingly, let's say, placed before someone like me on the 14th of March 2018. One Newham councillor at the time who watched my kind of statements online, on air, live on air at the time that I made in the direction of Robin Wales, told me later how immensely grateful the Newham people were for my action. Because Robin Wales had never been anywhere near anyone who had said even a tenth of what I said to him live on television. Okay, it was only a half an hour exchange. But in the half an hour, where I would say I had about 15 minutes at most, or half of that time that was allocated to the two participants, him on the one side, me on the other side, and in the center, the presenter. Now, I said to Robin Wales, as I said in a previous edition of this program, that because of the elected mayor system, the people of Newham had been betrayed by a council that had become even more corrupt with the mayor system than it had been before without the mayor system. Now, Robin Wales completely dishonestly or stupidly, because of his inability to understand subtle intellectual concepts, he misinterpreted that. And he said words to the effect that I was insulting the people of Newham. How the fuck did he come to that conclusion? I was saying the Newham people were being betrayed and let down by him and by the corrupt mayor system that he epitomized, he personified. How did that get translated into my saying anything that would insult the people of Newham? I was speaking for the people of Newham. So a man so dishonest, so brazenly dishonest, as Robin Wales came across as being on live television, how the fuck was he there in that post for 16 years? The fact that he was there for 16 years in that post meant that in Newham, in the London borough of Newham, among the electorate, among the so-called politically, let's say, aware, part of the population, there was not enough intelligence, enough awareness, enough moral courage to confront this liar and to kick him out. They never did. Now, as Rukhsana Fiaz has got herself into a second term since the 5th of May 2022, Rukhsana Fiaz is now 100 times more confident that she can perpetrate any number of lies, any number of betrayals, any number of denials, and she can engage in any number of corruption and fraud and dishonesty as she fancies, as she and her whim and her caprice prompt her to do. Because among the elected councillors, now that is a very heavy loaded expression, but these are politically dead people. Among the elected councillors in Nivam, it seems so far, and this is now what? She got in on the 5th of May. So June, May, let's take May as a whole month, 3 weeks, let's say. May, June, July, August, September. So that's 5 months. A very good 5 months, because this is the 9th of October. So it's a very good 9 months in terms of numbers. In the 5 months that she has got in her fraudulently procured second term, Rukhsana Fiaz has not faced any demand, any call, any pressure from any legitimate, credible political force demanding accountability from her. So you go back to this piece published under the byline of May Bullman and the Independent on the 13th of November 2018. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights visited one of the poorest boroughs in the capital as part of the 2-week tour of Britain to investigate the impact of the rollout of universal credit, child poverty, and Brexit on people living there. As I have dismissed that whole paragraph as a complete rubbish, I'm not going to repeat the dismissal. His visit comes after experts warned the United Kingdom had experienced the largest rise in poverty since Margaret Thatcher was in power. Now, who the fuck were these experts? And what was the point of referring to Margaret Thatcher was in power? Long before Margaret Thatcher got in, it was Harold Wilson's or Harold Wilson-fronted Labour government. And as Labour parties or Labour government's cabinet minister concerned, Jim Callaghan was around when these community development initiatives were started in the UK. And all kinds of shock revelations about poverty and deprivation in the inner cities were peddled at that time, and all kinds of promises to deal with those and tackle poverty and inequality and all the rest of it were made. All of these were made during the 70s, let's say. And Callaghan managed to give the kind of election win to Thatcher in 79, I think. Was it 79 or 81? One of those 2 years, which I shall have to check because I don't remember which year the election took place. Either 79 or 81. Probably 79. whether it was 79 or 81, being Margaret Thatcher means nothing. I mean, since her time or her being in power. So Bullman Peace says an increase believed to show the extent to which a combination of Brexit and government austerities imposing a serious squeeze on living standards. That is a fucking lie. And May Bullman should be prosecuted for lying in that way, on that scale. I have been, as I said, examining almost the daily behavior, or on a daily basis, I've been examining the behavior of the crooks in the Tower Hamlets Council. By extension, I've been also examining the behavior of other similar councils in London, especially in London, for 5 decades. I mean, if I take away the 1 decade that I was doing that from a distance before I physically arrived in the UK. And I can say that the behavior of Tower Hamlets Council, which too, with the exception of 1986 when the Social Democrats took over for 4 years and then they continued because of me up to 1994, I think. The Tower Hamlets Council had been under the political control of the Labour Party for all these years. And yet, every battle that I had to fight with the council crooks in these decades has been fights to do with the fact that they were lying, and I was demanding that they stop lying. Nothing to do with the Conservatives. Nothing to do with the Conservatives. Nothing to do with Brexit. Because Brexit only came along even as a referendum point in 2016. So Brexit cannot be mentioned as a substantial element in influencing poverty and degeneration. So Tower Hamlets epitomizes and epitomized council corruption, council dishonesty, council criminality, which are the reasons that contributed to my resolve in 2009 to 2010 to campaign as vigorously as I could against having an elected mayor in Tower Hamlets. Because I knew that whoever would become the mayor, whether they were Bangladeshi or they were white, would make Tower Hamlets even more corrupt than it had already become. And the reason why I said that, or the reasons why I said that, included the fact that there was nothing among the people in Tower, the ordinary people who are not either councillors or MPs or whatever, but ordinary people doing either business or working in an ordinary capacity, but aware, politically aware, socially aware about political decisions and the behavior of the council. I said that the ordinary people in Tower Hamlets may be aware, conscious, etc., but something is missing in their resolve, which means that they don't confront the corrupt council or the corrupt mayor or the corrupt member of parliament or the corrupt corporate entity outside of these councils, say the NHS, any entity, the NHS. And I said that without enough people being prepared, well, available and prepared to confront a corrupt mayor doing the more corrupt acts, making the council even more corrupt than before, there would be disaster for the people. People like that mother from West Africa in Newark, who are treated by the council with that kind of contempt, cruelty, inhumanity, disregard. And I said that for fairness, a local council has to be least corrupt, most accountable, most transparent, and most truthfully run. Now, somebody of the makeup of Luthuraman, who is cognitively very challenged, that is to say, he's not very intelligent, is he? When he misunderstood David Cohen's question. David Cohen, at the time working for the London Evening Standard, No Standards is my addition to the description of the corrupt paper. But you see, it's a trap of corruption. It's surrounded by corruption. The media is corrupt, the council is corrupt, and the mayor is cognitively incompetent, challenged. Now, David Cohen asked Luthuraman the question that had he, Luthur that is, discouraged or stopped his so-called supporters from repeating or spreading the rumor to the effect that his rival, the Labour Party's candidate, Abbasuddin alias Halal, this is my description of Abbasuddin alias Halal's name. I don't accept that he's been halal from the beginning. He has not been. So I have created the arrangement, Abbasuddin alias Halal, meaning that he has always been known as Abbasuddin in public. And halal is some kind of stupid invention he flaunted recently, comparatively recently. So David Cohen said, you have not, that is to say, Luthuraman, had not discouraged Luthuraman supporters from spreading the rumor to the effect that Abbas alias Halal's ex-wife, because Abbasuddin Halal's current wife at the time was not the one at issue or in question. It was his, probably the first wife, about whom the rumor went to the effect that Abbasuddin alias Halal had beaten her up. Now that was the defamation claim that Abbasuddin alias Halal made against another person who was in the category that can be called as a supporter of Luthuraman. Abbasuddin took this to the High Court, Queen's Bench Division, and partially succeeded in that action, not fully. Now, when Luthuraman and Rukhsana Fayaz are compared, the thing that they have in common in terms of their being endorsed by their racist endorsers, Luthuraman is called a Muslim mayor or something. And Rukhsana Fayaz is called a Muslim woman. First time, this, that, or the other. Now, essentially, to the people of both Newham and Tower Hamlets who have contracts with council employees making decisions affecting very serious issues concerning the rights of these people, whether Luthuraman is a Muslim or Rukhsana Fayaz is a Muslim woman does not matter whatsoever. Because it's not an Islamic regime, for heaven's sake. Now, Rukhsana Fayaz claims to have been born in Whitechapel in the Royal London Hospital and claims to have grown up in Newham. Now, her claim is probably accurate. But what did that amount to in terms of her being able and willing to identify with the victims of the council's misbehavior and misconduct and cruelty. She could have been born in another part of the world, in Africa or in Asia or in South America. It doesn't matter. Whether she is compassionate, whether she is conscientious, is nothing to do with where she was born. So when she comes behind me, as I stand at the reception at the East Ham Town Hall, sometime in 2018, because it is not long after the election of May 2018. She comes behind me and casually, as if we have known each other, we had not known each other at all. And she thanks me. This Roxana Fias thanks me in words to the effect that she thanks me for holding. She puts it in plural, not me. She says us. She says, thank you for holding us to account. That is effectively the summary of what she said to me. I would say that was in June 2018. If it was in June, it was September 2018, not later. Now, I assumed from that she was genuine, because I didn't know her personally, and I did not have anything to do with her. I didn't have any contact with her, and I had no, quote, aspiration to have a contact with her. To me, she was a career political, and she would do anything that career politicals did. While I was in the middle of a conversation with her, I noticed this woman, now chief executive in the London Borough of Croydon, who was interim chief executive appointed by Roxana Fias. So I think the meeting was taking place in September. I'll check that and update on that accordingly. So I noticed beyond the space where we were talking, and a few yards from there, standing, and this was Catherine Carswell, and she was using a device, either calling someone or taking pictures with the device. I later understood that she actually called one of the gangs of four that Roxana Fias had been plotting with for the previous 4 years. This is a woman of Caribbean background or African background. And she behaved. She appeared on the other side of I think she appeared on my right side. Roxana Fias on my left side, and this woman appeared on my right side. And she spoke to me as a thug. She said, "Excuse me," as if she owned the whole space as well as my liberty. And she said that I should stop talking. She as if gave me an order. Now, this thug will have to account for her thuggery. I have not even started on her. Now, I know who she is. She is a close co-gangster with the gangster Roxana Fias. And this gangster plotted with Roxana Fias and John Gray, another racist gangster coming from Wales. They plotted for 4 years against Robin Wales. Now, as I said, Wales was in the post of executive mayor of Newham at the expense of Newham for 4 years. That is to say, he got elected first in 2002. Then he got elected in 2006. Then he got elected in 2010. And then he got elected in 2014. 4 times Robin Wales got elected. And not one person in all of Newham, in all those 4 elections and 16 years, not one person from the Labour Party, not one person from any non-partisan independent platform, not a member of parliament, whether it was a living one or a dead one like the Tony Bonkers, not a single quote political individual in all of Newham, not a single journalist, not the local Newham recorder so called, none published one single item of evidence critical of Robin Wales. Okay, hold on. Some did, of course they did. But the people who did speak out against Robin Wales were a group of what they call themselves mothers. The mothers from E15. E15 is the postal address for the Stratford area, which is part of Newham. So they hit the headlines by alleging Robin Wales behaving as a thug to them. Now, this woman who came and addressed me as if she were the local thug and told me to stop talking to Rukhsana Fiaz is part of a thuggish clan or cabal that Rukhsana Fiaz had belonged to for the previous 4 or 5 years. And by calling her Catherine the criminal Carswell, who is the chief executive of Croydon now, she committed a crime. She incited a criminal intervention by this criminal she knew to be a criminal. And there are other wrongs, tortuous wrongs, that is to say, civil wrongs that Catherine Carswell committed. And I gave notice to Carswell on the record that she will be hearing from me in due course. She has not exempted herself from liability, the racist criminal liar. So when Rukhsana Fiaz did that on that occasion, I thought that's it. She was kind of putting sort of kind of mental kind of gratitude on the record, at least for my consumption, so that I won't be too cruel to her or too harsh on her. But this happened again. She found me somehow at the end of a meeting held at the Stratford town hall. And again, from behind, she greeted me with words similar to the ones that she had uttered at East Ham town hall. And I said similar things because by that time I had not yet begun to interrogate Rukhsana Fiaz about the lies of the council and her first kind of introduction to me from behind. Now, as I said in the previous edition, or more than one edition, my encounter with Robin Wales live on the satellite television program on the 14th of March 2018 was seen by literally a very large number of Newham Labour Party members who inundated the presenter of the program with congratulations because of the way the program handled Robin Wales And on the day when they face to face met the presenter telling me all this, they congratulated Mr. Haque for doing to Robin Wales what Robin Wales had deserved to be done to him for ages, and no one had done that to him. It then followed that because of that particular treatment that I had given him, lots of people who voted for Ruxana Fayaz as the nominee for the Labour Party voted for Ruxana Fayaz because of my crystal clarification of the corrupt role that Robin Wales had played, etc., etc. Now, because that item is still online available, a transcript is available as well, but I'm not going to repeat the details. Going back to the event in Canning Town and May Bullman's report of the 13th of November 2018 on the Independent, here is a repeat of the paragraph that I had read before. His visit, that is what's his name? This Alston, Philip Alston. His visit comes after experts warned the United Kingdom had experienced the largest rise in poverty since Margaret Thatcher was in power. An increase believed to show the extent to which a combination of Brexit and government austerity is imposing a serious squeeze on living standards. Now, remember this. May Bullman is writing in November 2018 when Brexit had not yet been concluded. So, how could Brexit be a combination, part of the combination? So, although essentially the thrust of this report is, quote, sympathetic to people victimized by state policy of poverty creation, Brexit was not a factor because it had not yet begun to be implemented. So, what kind of swear words are appropriate to be thrown at this idiot, May Bullman? I'm not going to repeat the last time what I used last time because it kind of affects my own taste and sensitivities. Then she goes on. Jane Williams of the Magpie Project, a charity supporting families in temporary accommodation in East London, told Mr. Alston of one case where a new mother was placed in a hostel with her 3-day-old son. She said women were being thwarted in their parenting as local authorities placed them in often decrepit housing miles away from their support networks, describing these families as a transient, invisible population. Families are being offered Bradford or nothing. That is to say, if they're being moved away from everything and everyone their children have ever known, then they are deemed to have made themselves intentionally homeless, she said, Jane Williams, that is, of the Magpie Project. There is nowhere to play, nowhere to learn to crawl. Learning to crawl on the bed because their mom won't put them on the infested floor. Imagine being thwarted in your parenting, wanting to be the best mom you can, knowing how to, but being unable to because of your circumstances. One of the mothers the Magpie Project supports, who did not want to be identified in the media, told how she stayed with an abusive partner for months because he was the only hope of being housed. Adding, I managed because I didn't want my baby to be evicted. The woman who addressed the meeting with a baby strapped to her back explained how, when she did finally pluck up the courage to escape, the police directed her to social services, where she was left waiting outside in the cold with her child for 20 hours with no food. I was in my slippers. It was so cold. I plucked up the courage to ask them, to say, I am hungry. I have a baby. But they said, we can't give you anything. I had to drink my baby's milk, she said. That was in Neom. And the police directed her to the social services in Neom. Now, what checks, if checks are appropriate things that the police do about this aspect of their conduct, what checks did they carry out about how Neom Council social services behave ever towards the people, mostly in emergency situations, urgently needing serious, caring attention, support, solidarity, comfort, help, and recognition? Who checks the social services behavior? The elected councillors? I shall come to that in a minute. Another woman told how she fled her home country in Africa because her uncle was raping her. I'll read that again. Another woman told how she fled her home country in Africa because her uncle was raping her, but received no support on arriving in Britain with her baby, and was subsequently forced to live with a man who sexually abused her because he was prepared to house them. This is Nivam. Roxana Fias is the mayor. When she finally left him, that woman from Africa, she said she was given no help from the council, that is Nivam Council, where the mayor is Roxana Fias, and had to rely on friends and almost nothing to live. Now, Roxana Fias is hailed as a woman. How the fuck? The woman who became pregnant with the abusive man's baby told of one occasion where she had to sleep rough when she was 6 months pregnant. This is not recognized in Philip Alston's final report on the UK. I'll come to that shortly. Now, Meb Ullman's piece continues. Mr. Alston, who also heard stories of mentally and physically disabled people who had been hounded by the Department for Work and Pensions every day. Now remember, I call Ian Duncan Smith, Ian Dracula Duncan Smith. This is the creation of the Dracula Duncan Smith. The DWP, I call it the Department of Deprivation, Want and Poverty Creation. DWP hounded these people every day. What would the DWP say? I'll come to the DWP also later. One woman, a live-in carer, age 64, a live-in carer, I think, reportedly took 7 attempts to fill out the universal credit application, which can only be done online. She had no Wi-Fi at home. She had to use the library, but with the library closures impacting our communities, it is incredibly difficult to access benefits, said a spokesperson for a disability campaign group. Due to job center closures across the country, she had to take 2 bus journeys to go to Bromley. She had to borrow the money from her landlord Due to payment delays in her claim, she had to borrow money of her landlord to eat. She hadn't eaten for a week when she came to us. She had not eaten for a week. She didn't get any help from the job center to pay her travel expenses. She was put into debt and left anxious and stressed. Another universal credit claimant was reportedly landed with a £15 fine for making a mistake on the application form and was then told to get a smartphone to more easily handle his claim, but was unable to afford one. See the vicious cycle. The meeting also heard about the plight of women detained in Yarlswood Immigration Removal Center. Yarlswood is a notorious immigration removal center manufactured, invented after the models of Nazi Germany and apartheid Africa, South Africa. The humans are dehumanized from the word go. And both while they are in the facility and released into the community, women are absolutely abused everywhere as a result of the role played by the local council, like Newham Council, where Ruxana Fiaz celebrates her being the mayor. And she celebrates with the collusion of the cabal that includes that thug, another woman. Many of us, many of you will have heard what's happened at the notorious Yarzud detention center, where women have suffered rape and sexual abuse. But what you don't always hear is what happened to the women who get out, said one campaigner. We have heard women being literally thrown out from the detention center without a penny to get anywhere in the country. And that is another level of abuse that is so hidden and makes women so vulnerable. The campaigner added, I'm fed up of people being on trial for being poor. And this is where the Ruxana Fiaz fakery comes in. After hearing the witness statements, Newham's mayor Roxana Fiaz said, quote, can I just apologize on behalf of myself as mayor of Newham and on behalf of the council that you experienced that treatment at the hands of people that we employ. It shouldn't have happened. Now, that was, I think, probably 12th of November. This was dated the 13th of November, so the events must have taken place the day before. So that was 12th of November 2018, and now this is 19, 20, 21, 4 years later, coming to November again, just a month short. Has that kind of behavior stopped? Well, I'll come to that. Let's read the rest of the Mayor Bullman piece. This treatment of our residents, that is still quoting Roxana Fiaz, regardless of their circumstances, their backgrounds, of how long they have been here, has to stop. Now, I say that Roxana Fiaz lied as she spoke those words, and she has not stopped lying for the 4 years that have followed. And I shall give details after I've read the rest of the May Bullman piece. Closing the meeting, Philip Alston said the accounts had really exemplified the dramatic challenges. Fuck off. What is dramatic about any of this, you shit? So many are confronted with today. What fucking word dramatic, you shit? And said he hoped to galvanize those in power. How the fuck did he say that? He could not galvanize his backside, you shit. To promote the prospects for people to live the sorts of lives they want and should be able to live. What the fuck? Sorts of lives they want. He was supposed to be the fucking United Nations rapporteur on extreme poverty. What about the United Nations founding declarations about human rights, you fucking moron? He doesn't mention the United Nations. Then Mehbulman continues to quote this liar. Mr. Alston added, "It will be up to me to ascertain the extent to which the authorities, the various governments and government ministers are really aware of the sort of issues you have presented to help me today." Sort of issues? What a pathetic, lazy, intellectually sleeping, slumberous, idiotic statement. Sort. And the extent they have thought about measures that can improve the situation. That's what I want to find out. Fuck him. This is the United Nations. Now, the United Nations Secretary General currently, for the second term that he should not have been given, is from Portugal. Now, this idiot from Portugal is a preacher man, I call him, because this preacher man surfaces on selected target places affected by either natural disaster or climate change effects, like he has done in the last few weeks in Pakistan. Because Pakistan, southern Pakistan, what is Pakistan now? Southern Pakistan has been affected by heavy monsoons. Now, southern Pakistan includes Sindh, Baluchistan. Now, in the late 50s and early 1960s, the word Pakistan and floods and cyclone, especially cyclones, heavy cyclones, almost exclusively related to East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. And Imran Khan, in his incomplete and I would say dishonest recollections about the link between East and West Pakistan, has made an offensive remark about East Pakistan or East Pakistanis complaining about lack of support from West Pakistan when East Pakistan had been affected by cyclones. I shall deal with Imran Khan's dishonesty and give him the comprehensive advice in due course later in another edition or a series of updated editions, not now, not in this one. Now, West Pakistan, which is now Pakistan, has never experienced water related disasters like the recent floods. But when the United Nations Secretary General surfaced there in Islamabad, the capital, and then when visited the flood affected area's capital, he didn't have any contextual comment to make. He, like the current kind of Prime Minister of Pakistan, appeared before the cameras and they both looked like artificial dummies. Well, they looked like dummies, so they were artificial because of that. They were not artificial dummies because dummies themselves were artificial. So, what Alston did is what the United Nations Secretary General does. He doesn't talk about the real purpose of the existence of the United Nations. The founding objectives, the founding principles of the United Nations, which were scripted, written down, and thought up and thought about in the last 5 years of the 1940s. These were kind of epoch-making statements, the founding declarations. Now, if anyone makes a statement that contains due and comprehensible understanding of the founding declarations of the United Nations, then to the viewer, to the reader, to the observer, the purpose of the piece they're reading or they're hearing becomes that much better understood and appreciated. But Allstone, he talks in a sort of language, not telling the truth. And he does not come across as a real investigator, let alone a campaigner. So that's the piece that May Bullman wrote. And what I did with my organization concerned, because we publish, quite apart from this television channel broadcasts, we produce materials every single day, around the clock, 24 hours, 24/7. And everything that we detect as being related to Roxana Fias herself and her, quote, thinking, that is the mechanism in her mind, not the kind of ethics in her mind. We deal with that. And for the first year, I think, since she got in, we published under our campaign names, because if I use my name, the Newham Recorder would be absolutely, totally opposed to my name, because they would have in place a permanent policy to kind of block my name. So that is something I take for granted. So there are various names that were used, both active members of the organization that I'm organizing and coordinating, as well as names that we created for the purpose of writing. And we we managed to publish, before they deleted them, we managed to publish about 100 or so extensive detailed comments against Newham Council and detailing the lies of Newham Council. And then when Philip Allstone published his kind of report on the visit of Britain, we then sent him a copy in New York, in the United Nations kind of place where his bureaucracy is headquartered. And we expected response, because everything we said was factual, evidential, and it was correctly, extensively referenced and referred to various accessible, verifiable items. Now, if he was genuinely the United Nations rapporteur on extreme poverty in the UK, logic, reason, rationality warrant that he would have replied, acknowledged, and started to engage on the facts that we pointed out. But he didn't. The fact that he didn't was not something that we depended on him. We never depend on any of the targets, either central government, local government, or whatever. We put forward the evidence. That is the biggest platform that we create on the issue. That is on the record, and that is there for the foreseeable future, unless technology collapses and crashes and all the kind of online evidence disappear. What we said was unique because we commented and we actually observed him visiting Spain and other European countries and doing the same kind of thing. And we concluded that Philip Allstone was a typical imperialist racist from Australia. And he didn't have any natural sympathies with the people. That is why he says the source of life they want. It should not be up to them. And his kind of indifferent, insulting reference, they want. These are the very things that the founding aims of the United Nations declarations actually aimed to address. And for him being given that post, whether he earned any extra money or not, he earned a lot of kudos. His CV got seriously enhanced by his claims that he was a United Nations rapporteur for extreme poverty, etc. This man is supposed to be a professor of some part or some aspects of the law at the University of New York. Now, with that kind of poverty and stupidity, what kind of professor is he? And what could he be aiming to create in the sphere of knowledge about the law? So we shall be talking more about Alston and the United Nations, as well as the report that he actually confected about Britain. Because what he did, he collected a number of reports that had already been published in The Guardian, and he kind of, what did he do? He actually recycled other items published elsewhere and he rephrased them. That is what he did. And he said that it was up to him. Remember the piece, the May Bullman piece says that it's up to him to ascertain. It was not for him to ascertain. It was on the evidence that he should have made any decision. Now, during the period that Alston featured in the so-called news, the main kind of outlets that featured him reported his visit were the Guardian and the Independent, and maybe partly the I newspaper. The others were not mentionable, I would say. He had, and he sat there, and what he said was pathetic. As I said, he didn't talk about the real purpose of the United Nations. Now, if he doesn't do that, then his being described as the United Nations anything loses the fundamental relevance. Because the United Nations is supposed to be, in the world today, the bureaucratic kind of highest bureaucratic point of arbitration, observation, whatever, about wrongdoing, about the violations of rights and how to rehabilitate people, all the rest of it. Somebody like Philip Alston is sent to visit the United Kingdom. Let's forget the other countries for the time being. And in the United Kingdom, currently there are, let's check the current accessible information about data about the number of people that are in extreme poverty. Let's see if there is a recognition of extreme poverty in the UK on the records. Okay, there is a item under extreme poverty. There is extreme poverty in the world, our mission, and extreme poverty solutions. Let's see where the if there is an entry on the UK. So poverty is in the UK. Fight UK poverty. Extreme poverty solutions are. So let's see what says. Poverty is in the UK. So this is a Christian missionary thing. So having said that, let's still look at what they say. It's a Christians against poverty. Okay, are they actually against poverty? We have no idea, but let's see. So in the search that we conducted on UK, they've got 116 results. And it's one of the headlines is UK government's call for evidence on support needed during the cost of living crisis. Now, this is completely stupid because this is not about a government propaganda, but that's what they're doing. That is what they keep doing. And that is what spoils them or ruins their otherwise stated intentions. So let's see what they are saying about the party conferences, what they did at party conference, which is what they're saying that they did. Well, that is not this year, it was last year, aren't they? But let's see what the individuals said. Both the Labour and Conservative parties recently held their conference in Brighton, Manchester. This is the reference to 2021, not this year's conference of 2022. So Rachel Gregory, CAP's policy manager, attended both as a representative of the charity. Here are some of the key points discussed at both. Now, this is not the priority, is it? It's not about what the party conferences discuss, because they would discuss plastic kind of ways, plasticky things. They would not talk about the truth about what the councils get up to, etc., etc. So what we shall be doing in the next edition, whenever we manage to do that logistically, this is now 1 hour, 7 minutes and 33 seconds. So we shall be bringing an end to this one, but we have talked mainly about Philip Alston, but we have not talked fully about Philip Alston. We shall be doing that, and we shall continue to do that about the wider issues, not just the local council, not just about NEOM, not just about Roxana Fias or Catherine Carswell, the criminal, now in post as chief executive of the Crooks Council now. We shall be talking about other councils, and we shall be showing that at no level, not parliament, not the media, whatever level of the media, no outlet, and academically, in terms of the various universities and institutions, there is nothing that actually follows, examines, evaluates, teaches about the world in the last 70, 80 years since the end of the so-called European war and the foundation of the United Nations. Because the foundations of the United Nations, in my view, was the most important event internationally, not because of what it has achieved since, but because of the ideas, because of the aims and objects articulated and contained in the founding declarations and the founding declarations themselves. These are, in the history of the world in the last few thousand years, probably the most important, significant declarations, in my view. And it's like the thing in the United Kingdom. Despite the various competing claims about the genuine founders of the National Health Service, because the Labour Party claims their party kind of created the NHS. Even the Lib Dems claim that theirs, Beveridge, they say, was one of theirs. Probably he was. But whatever Beveridge's party political sympathies might be, The most important thing about the declaration for having a national health service, delivering health care at the point of need, was phenomenal. It was absolutely liberating and civilizing. And it was towards fairness, towards real equality. The fact that since then, the NHS has not been allowed to stand on its feet is a different matter. The declaration is a precious one which should be treasured and improved on, just as the declaration founding the United Nations are. So I'll come to call this an end, and this is 1 hour and 11 minutes. Ordinary time is 21 hours 11 GMT, and the UK British Standard Time is 22 hours 11 minutes. We shall come to the next